Hello again, and here we are at Perfectly Paranormal, episode 117. My name's Annaschmidt, and I'm here every week to share with you true paranormal encounters and information about devils, demons, and dark energy beings that no one else talks about. And today we are talking haunted dolls, like you've never heard before. We're talking about this in reality. There's going to be no stories, but real experiences with spirits, demons, and other entities that go bump in the night. Now, we've all heard of the Annabelle doll, and I'm not going to go down that track today. I did mention an experience that I had with that doll's energy back in episode 95. And that was through an online video. So check it out if you're interested. But in this episode, I'm going to share with you 3 dark dolly encounters. Yes, indeed. These are all local Tasmanian experiences that freaked out the families and will raise your spirits to a maximum level with this otherworldly information. Now, most kids have dolls at one time or another in childhood. And even in adulthood, they can be long-term mementos of your childhood. Sometimes these innocent-looking dolls can come with energetic attachments lurking within them, hiding and waiting to create mischief and havoc in the home. So let's hear what this mum had to say. This is our first experience about a doll after it entered her house. And I've called this experience Poppy Doll's Predicament. Now, a friend messaged me with a doll that she was sure needed an energy clearing. I'm going to explain how she knows and what was attached to it. She said that this doll kind of reminded her of a modern-day Annabelle doll, and this is why. 2 or 3 days after receiving this doll, the little girl, this lady's daughter, she's around about 4 years old, she suddenly became someone else. Her behaviours were absolutely abhorrent. They just weren't this little girl's normal behaviours. Even when kids get angry, they lash out and they do certain things. You get to know your child's behaviours. But ever since this doll came into the house, and it was the only thing that changed within those last sort of 2 to 3 days, this child's behaviour become very angry, very rageful, yelling and screaming, like the whole shebang. She was in a full-on rage ever since that doll came into the house. Now, she and her brother, they'd fight. Kids fight. It's normal. But they were fighting more than normal, and it was elevated whenever this little girl was holding the doll. Like the doll went everywhere with her, like it was tucked under her arm. She took it everywhere, and she even slept with it. And she slept with it in her mum's bed, between her mum and the daughter. Now, the mum jokingly said that she hadn't had any nightmares yet, but that Poppy was buttering her up before she comes in for the kill. This mum, she watches way too many haunted doll movies. She watches a lot of paranormal movies with me. But she had an awareness about this doll. She's like, there is something odd about this toy, and I'm just going to get Anna to check it out. It doesn't hurt. There's no harm in looking at the photo of the doll and seeing if it's got anything attached to it. So she messaged me that afternoon, asked if I could do an energetic clearing for the doll. And this is the information that I found. Now, I'm not going to read out all of the negative emotions for each of these 3 stories because there's like 10, 15, 20. You're just going to get bored. But if you want to know all of them, you'll find them in the transcript notes. Now, if there's negative emotional imprints attached to anything, including dolls and toys, there are going to be some level of paranormal being attached to it. Whether it's a spirit that was attached to the doll, whether it was an antique doll that had come from maybe an auction or handed down from grandma, and grandma passes away and grandma loved her doll so much from childhood that she didn't want to leave it and she's still attached to it, and then it comes to another child and the child's behaviours change. There's lots of reasons why, but no. This wasn't a spirit. This doll had two dark entities attached to it. And why? Why were these entities there? I'm sure you know. If you listen to this podcast often enough, you'll know why these beings were present. They're attracted to vibrations, to negative vibrations. Emotions are energy in motion, and these are the emotions that were attached to this doll. Depression, distress, paranoia, horror, rage, hostility, resentment, hatred, blame. I'm not going to read them all. You'll find them in the transcript. But this doll was loaded with negative emotional imprints. And they'd been there since she'd been handled in the factory, since she'd been made in the factory. Wherever in the world she came from, she was imprinted with those emotions. Along with emotions, sometimes you can get what's called trauma imprints. Trauma imprints are they're different to emotions. Emotions are the feeling, how we feel. Trauma imprints can be actions. So when people act out a particular way, and that creates a vibration. So what was attached to this doll, as in trauma imprints, was abandonment, mental and emotional instability, and depression. Now, depression, from my understanding, can be an action and a doing, which is a trauma imprint, but also an emotion, how we feel internally. So this is why it's listed in both. Now, I felt that during the production of this doll in the factory, someone who handled Poppy, some sort of loss in their childhood, where they felt abandoned, where something had happened to them, some sort of trauma had happened to them. So handling this doll may have triggered a childhood memory for that person. And along with mental and emotional instability and depression, maybe they hadn't sought mental health care or grief counselling for their problems. Handling that doll triggered this loss, and all that energy was just transferred onto Poppy. So you're probably freaking out going, oh my God, there's going to be emotional imprints and trauma imprints attached to everything. Well, yes and no. So don't be too frightened of it. This is why I share this stuff, so you can be aware. I mean, I've got things in my house. I'm looking at my 2 lamps now. I'm looking at the table. I'm sitting on a chair. I mean, I've got my laptop. Everything in our life will have been handled, like all the things we buy, will have been handled by other people during their production, their packaging, their marketing, their postman and so forth. So it's just an awareness that I'm trying to create. If you bring something new into the home and the energy changes, you're like, there's something going on here. So this is why I share this. Now, I cleared Poppy. I sat there, I removed all the emotional imprints, all the trauma imprints, 3 entities attached to it. Poppy is now totally energetically clean. And yes, when the little girl handles Poppy, if she's feeling a certain way, whether it's positive or negative, both different types of vibration can be transferred to objects. It's not all negative, but I just focus on sharing how the dark beings attach to negative emotional imprints. The light, fluffy ones like love and joy and happiness, they're all there, but these dark beings don't attach to that. They're not a problem. It's the lower vibrational emotions that are a problem. Now, since doing the clearing on that doll, the mum told me that her daughter's extremely negative behaviours had disappeared altogether. She's back to being a 4-year-old. And yes, 4-year-olds have tantrums. They throw things. They get angry. The mum knows the extent of her daughter's behaviours. And she also knows too, when something changes and they become extremely different to her normal behaviours. And then she's like, right, what's come into the house? Where have we been? Who have we been in contact with? Now, this next experience, oh my goodness, this is sure to get your attention. What would you think if you found a toy in your letterbox? It wasn't a nice looking toy. It was a hand-knitted sort of cat or a bear. I think it was supposed to be a cat. This toy was it was rather creepy, I'm sorry. Whoever knitted it, I'm sorry, it is a creepy toy. This toy was left in a man's letterbox. He's the father of a family, father of a newborn baby. There was no wrapping on this toy, not even a plastic bag. No, not wrapped in gift paper. There was no note, no card, no letter. So who left it in the letterbox? And what I asked when I saw it is, what's attached to it? And the family's dubbed this toy the creepiest toy ever. Now, if my podcast and incessant talking about the paranormal has done nothing else, it has opened people's eyes and taught them to observe and question and listen to their intuition when it comes to unusual happenings, unusual situations, unusual experiences. And this toy was all of those. This toy was indeed an unusual plaything of sorts, as you're going to hear. The family and me were kind of smack bang in the middle of an energetic attack. So it's been going on for years. It's just a thing that's in the background that's going on. And we did wonder, this hand-knitted toy that looked kind of innocent, kind of shabby, kind of a little bit frightening. It had a creepy underlying vibe. And the dad, when he went to the letterbox, he got home from work and, he was at the bottom of the driveway and he's like, oh, I'll just check the letterbox. There was this toy stuffed in the letterbox. That is just suspicious. To me, that is just suspicious. Before you even touch it or give it any of your attention, I'm like, why? If someone stuffed something in my letterbox and there's no note, there's nothing attached, I wouldn't even pick it up. You do not touch things like that with your hands. He did, because he didn't think about it. But he went and had a shower and I've checked him out and there was no issues there. Get a pair of tongs and you throw it in the bin, or you burn it, or you bury it, or you just get rid of it because you don't know what's attached to it. Now, this man has a sister that I know. We've been embroiled in this thing together. If you want to have a listen to what we've had to deal with, you can go back to episode 100. Have a listen to all the problems we've had to deal with. Anyway, he sent his sister a photo of this ever so strange toy and said, "What do you think?" Well, she went, "Oh, no. Do not take that creepy thing into the house and please keep it away from the baby." Now, she instantly sent me the photo. And as I'm working on my computer a lot, I saw it. I saw the message and I went, okay, I'm going to have a look at this now. Soon as I opened the photo, I sat there with my mouth open and I went, oh dear. Oh, and I'm like this friend, I went, oh, no, don't touch it. And I was feeling a little bit elevated. I was was making me angry. It made me angry to think that this particular group of people would send a toy to a newborn baby that had stuff attached to it. And the stuff you're going to hear in a moment. I'm not afraid to share this because people need to know what goes on in our communities, in our society, what people send to each other to cause harm, to cause havoc, to cause bad luck, to cause trouble for families. I like to study things, as you know. I like to know what's attached to them because there usually is something, like I mentioned earlier. It's not always bad. And I just like to look. I'm a real sticky beak. So I was curious and I sat and I stared at this photo. Like the eyes. The eyes were a real draw card for me. I'm looking at the eyes, looking at the head, and I'm going, don't like this thing. I really, really don't like it. And the more I looked at it, the sicker I felt. Like my spidey senses, my paranormal spidey senses were going off the scale. Now, if you want to see a picture of this toy, there's no energy attached to it now. So if you look at it in my YouTube thumbnail or my Instagram post, because I post every week with my new episodes, you will see it on the thumbnail. There's no energy attached to it. Nothing is going to transfer to you. It's totally clean. Do you want to know what I found lurking in, on and around the toy? Well, you might just be a bit surprised. Now, there was 4 different types of energy attached to this toy, and I like to know what it is, so I do the detective work. So first of all, I looked at what I call magic interference. That's any type of magical vibration. So I'll be talking voodoo, sorcery, and magic, and any other incantations that could be present. Now, I'm not a magical practitioner of any form or anything. So I've had to learn about this the hard way. I've had to learn about this the hard way over the last 3 years. But I know now how to unpack the different levels of what can be attached to people and items and places. So this toy had voodoo, sorcery, magic and other incantations attached to it. And they'd been there for around about the last 3 weeks. Now, the time frame is not important, but I just ask out of curiosity. I can clear that vibration from that toy, whether it's 3 weeks ago, 3 months, 3 years, 3 decades, 3 centuries. I just ask that it's all removed. Now, that vibration was there. And then we had some entities, as you would imagine. There were sorcery and magic entities. These are what I call the summoned beings that I've talked about in some of my previous episodes. They're not just stock standard freelance demonic entities that are just roaming around feeding off our emotions and getting high on that. These are other entities. They were attached to the toy, again, within about the last sort of 3 weeks. The third thing that was attached to the toy, because it had been handled by many people and the person that put it in the letterbox, the person that made it and so forth, there were a large number of emotional imprints. So some of them were depression, contempt, guilt, anxiety, discontent, overwhelm, rejection, hatred, horror, rage, hostility. You'll find the rest of the list in the transcript notes. All those emotions had been attached to that toy for sort of about the last 2 to 3 months when it had been made. I mean, it could be longer. Dowsing, pendulum dowsing, I find, isn't always 100% accurate for time frames. So I always write approximately. So when clearing the toy, I would have said absorbed into the toy. All these emotions have been absorbed into the toy since it was made. And that clears it all. So the fourth thing I look at are what I call connection points. Now, there was energy cording and a portal open on the toy that would have been connected to the placement of the negative energy, of the magic interference, of the entities, and of some of those emotions would have come from the person that put it in the letterbox and opened that cording and that portal. Now, after I cleared all the negative energy that I've mentioned, I sent the information to the father and he was shocked, like totally shocked. He said, I knew it was creepy, but crikey, this thing is off the show. So I bet you're wondering what they did with this toy. Once it was cleaned, is it safe to bring into the house? Well, yes, it is. But would you want it in your house? What he decided, he thought, well, do we re-gift it? Sell it? Send it to the tip shop, thrift shop, or some people call it an opportunity shop. Or do we throw it in the bin? Well, I think they're going to burn it so that no one else has to deal with this toy. So I was only going to do 3 stories today, but as I'm sitting here, this reminded me of another toy. This was a doll that was gifted by an elderly lady to a neighbour. Now, this neighbour was very, very pregnant and just about to have her, I think it was her 2nd child. Now, this lady messaged me through a social media platform and she went, I don't know what to do with this. A lady has given me a doll. She has hand-knitted beautiful clothing for it. The clothing is absolutely beautiful, but the doll gives me the creeps. And she said to me that I can't have it in the house, but I can't say no because the elderly lady's lonely. I kind of talk to her sometimes. She doesn't get any visitors. And she just wanted to gift this doll to someone before her time comes to pass. And the doll would probably end up at the tip or just be put in the bin. So she was a bit like, do I keep it? Do I not keep it? Well, I don't remember the details of that particular doll because this one was quite a while ago. But I said to the lady, I've cleared it for you. It did have entities attached to it and it did have emotions like loneliness, there were trauma imprints of abandonment, shock. There was lots of mental and emotional instability, depression, and I think there was probably 2 or 3 entities attached to it. They never travel alone. There's always more than one. So this lady did keep this haunted doll, but she did not put it in the cot with her newborn baby like this elderly lady wanted. She kept the doll and she put it in her garage. It was still in the box. She respected it. She put it out there where it would be kept dry and safe, and if the elderly lady decided she wanted to come for a visit, the mum could bring it into the house and have it in the house ready for her to see it in the house. Now, some of you out there might be going, well, that's a bit of deception. She should just tell the elderly lady the truth. It's totally up to you what you do in that situation. But the mum had already accepted it and she didn't want to give it back because that would have probably really upset the lady. So the doll lived its happy life and it's probably still out there now in the garage. Now, our last story for this episode is not quite as creepy as the creepy toy in the letterbox, but it still left an 8-year-old boy sleeping with his head under the covers for a week. He was just scared out of his wits before he plucked up the courage to tell his mum what the problem was. And I've called this slightly frightening encounter Dolly with the breathing. Laura contacted me to say that her son Timmy can't sleep. She said something is breathing in his room and it is frightening the bejeekers out of him. Now, Laura's very aware of the paranormal. I've done lots of work for Laura. We talk about it all the time. I make it normal for people to understand it. Work out what it is. Do the debunking in your home. Work out, if there's something going on in your home that is very, very rational. But in this case, it wasn't. Doing some debunking and investigating in Timmy's room, Laura found the culprit. It was a doll with a voice feature that was extremely hard to turn on. You see, the kids never use it because you can't turn it on easily. You had to press the hand and the tummy in just the right spot with the right amount of pressure, and the kids could never do it. So it was just like, we're just not going to play with that. This toy had been given to the family, I can't remember the exact time frame, but probably maybe 3 to 4 years ago. And it had made its way to the bottom of the toy box. And you'd think that if there was any batteries in it after that time period, they would have run out. She pulled the doll out, turned it over and tried to press the button, hidden in the hands and in the belly, and it took ages to just find that right spot. The batteries were indeed still active, and the voice and the breathing started. It had been gifted to them from the family, and she just didn't like it. And the kids didn't like it, so it ended up in the bottom of the toy box. So Laura sat there with this doll, and she's hanging on to it, and she's thinking, how did it turn itself on at the bottom of the toy box that hadn't been opened in ages? So Laura sent me a photo of this doll and asked if I could take a paranormal peek at it. When I had a look at it, I had a sort of mild twinge of supernatural spidey tingling going on, especially when I saw something shift on the doll. I went, aha, I know what this means. Something trying to be invisibly attached to the doll. And I set about seeing who or what was present. And the following information is what I found attached to the contents and the covering of the doll. Because you don't just look at the outside of the doll. You've got to think about what's been put inside it. Who's handled it and all that stuff I talked about earlier. This doll had one dark being attached to it. And again, it was attached to its favourite food sources. There was a collection of emotional imprints of depression, sorrow, regret, anxiety, overwhelm, panic, paranoia, rage, distress. A lot of these toys have similar emotions because some of the emotions that I've mentioned are very common in society. I find these emotions attached to people all the time. It's just part of who we are. Now, those emotions had been there, sort of absorbed into and onto that doll for within about the last 6 years. And remember, the doll had been in a toy box for at least 4 years. Now, that doll I cleaned up that doll again. Once you remove the food source, the entities go, I don't want to be here. I either transition them into the healing space in the afterlife waiting room, which is where dark energy beings can go, or they go back out in the human environment. I mean, I presume they can go back to wherever they came from if they want to. I don't have that information. And they just want to go back out in the earth environment and find some other food source that's got their favourite vibration. It's just what they do. They're part of our energetic environment. Now, what do you think about haunted dolls? Have you ever had a creepy doll experience? Let me know if you'd like to share it. If you'd like me to share it on a podcast episode. I love sharing other people's questions, their comments, their experiences. It really does help make the paranormal normal. And having the awareness and being able to observe, using your observation skills to know when something changes in your home or to one of the family members, this can really save time and trouble clearing up energetic problems. Be aware, get onto it, get someone to look at it, someone who's trained in understanding energetic disturbances. So in episode 118, you're going to get a very honest, no holes barred understanding of how to find a trustworthy paranormal energy worker with a proven track record, someone who can clear all your paranormal disturbances. Now, I'm going to share some rather shocking and money-wasting experiences that make me quite angry. I don't get angry very easily, but when people are ripped off by charlatans, that really does burn my biscuits, as a lady on YouTube says. I'm sorry I'm using your phrase, but it does. So these people have been unexpectedly ripped off and left out of pocket. And they just don't trust any energy workers that then want to help them. I had this experience. And these people were like, no, you're the third person we've been to. We just don't know what to do with this. So stay tuned for next week's episode. It's going to be a very practical guide to debunking charlatans and finding someone in the energy world that can truly help you. So thank you for joining me today. And don't forget, if you want to share a paranormal experience just with myself, or you would like me to share one of your experiences through my podcast, you can do a voice recording, or you can write out your experience and I will read it exactly as you have written. You can email me at spiritualbeing44@gmail.com. And for information on paranormal house clearing, you can visit my website, Spiritual Being. You will find the address in the description box. And I look forward to sharing this spooky space again with you next week. And remember, life is perfectly paranormal.